Hey guys, and welcome to the final episode of the history of Stickmen. Today, we will be going over Season 3, which was, let's just say, quite an experience. It was probably the most insane season of Stickmen when it came to its production, and the episodes, too. So let's just say that this season was honestly really, really difficult to make, and I think one of the things that contributed was just how cocky I'd gotten because of how quickly the first two seasons came. Like, the first season was literally like just 1 month, and then season 2, which was this huge season with 23 full-length episodes, only took 9 months to completely finish. So, wow. Anyway, well, without further ado, I guess let's get into the episodes. Alright, so after I finished a brief reunion, I was kind of on a little bit of a hiatus just kind of taking a break, which is definitely understandable after the behemoth of a season that was Season 2, and just how fast it came. But my break didn't last, because my dad told me about a brand new competition that was going, well, not a competition, it was an art convention called Eyesore. It was Eyesore 2023, and basically, you could submit a bunch of different art pieces and they'd feature it at the convention, and Dad suggested that I make the next Stickman episode, and they would play it on, like, this huge, big Jumbotron, which would be awesome. Just my Stickman episode on a huge Jumbotron. So that's when I started on Does Not Compute. There's not too much to say on the production of this one, besides the whole Eyesore thing. However, at the end of it, I sort of ran out of time for the deadline, so what I ended up doing was splitting it into 2 parts. Like, I cut it off at the part where Supervillain first gets teleported into Roboking's office, and it's like, watch it on Nicholas and the Household if you want the rest, whenever that comes out. But the people at Eyesore were kind enough to actually give me more time to finish the episode, which is what I did a couple days later. Now, I had thought about not posting Does Not Compute until a bit later. It was already a couple days after when it did get posted, because I wanted the Eyesore convention to be kind of the world premiere of it. But then I realized how far away the Eyesore convention actually was, it being in November, and me sitting on an already completed Stickman episode in October. Okay, I did do the same thing with the erasing, but I mean, come on. So I decided to post it anyways. Then, the next episode was actually our first our first special that wasn't a part of the main series. Stickmen Wrath of the Pumpkin King. And, oh boy. Oh, by the way, I actually went to Eyesore 2023 in November, and it was super awesome seeing my thing on the big screen. But, Wrath of the Pumpkin King. I, teased it on, like, October 4th of 2023, a couple weeks even before Does Not Compute, but, as you probably know, this got delayed. Like, it did not come out on Halloween, and it got pushed into November, very late November, too, November 26th, so Halloween was well over by the time Wrath of the Pumpkin King released. The reason for this was mainly because of everything going with Does Not Compute already being in production with the whole Eyesore thing, kind of taking up most of my time in October and not really giving me all that much time to finish Wrath of the Pumpkin King. It was already like October 20th by the time I started on it. But eventually I did end up finishing it, late November. So yeah, that was definitely hectic. Kind of was a early warning that Season 3 was gonna be a lot differenter than the other seasons. Fun little fact, when we posted Wrath of the Pumpkin King to BitChute, one of the guys in the comments suggested that I start doing monthly episodes, which is where I started doing monthly episodes is the format that I use today. Which is, as you know, significantly slower than my old animation pattern of whenever I want to, every Saturday. But, yeah. Another thing that we did was, in early November, before Wrath of Pumpkin King released, Stickmen turned 1 year old. I mean, there's already 2 seasons out, and the 3rd season has just started, and only now is it turning 1 year old, which is kind of insane. So what I did for that was I recorded a tidbit, a short little segment from every single Stickman episode at that point, and just collaged them together as a happy birthday, Stickman, kind of a little tribute there, so that was pretty nice. But yeah. Anywho, the next project was that year's Christmas special, being Supervillains Christmas, and this one also had a very interesting production, to say the least. Alright. So, originally, Supervillains Christmas was not going to be Supervillains Christmas at all. Let me explain. Originally, it was going to be a Stickman Christmas Carol. Basically, what we get, it'd still be a song, obviously, but what we got, anyway, it was still gonna be a Christmas Carol, not gonna be like the traditional specials like the others, still gonna be a song. However, it was going to be different than the final one, because in the original draft, pretty much every single character got a part singing around Stickville. And, yeah, the main plot of Supervillain wanting to get on the nice list was still in there, but, I mean, that didn't happen. Like, Supervillain didn't start singing until, like, a minute into the song in the original draft. But that was the plan. Have it just be everyone singing, and everyone getting their own little part, Stickville celebrating Christmas. But, let's just say, I lost the lyrics. Yeah, I lost the lyrics. Which, man, I couldn't really do the whole Stickman Christmas Carol idea in time for Christmas. So what I ended up doing was taking the original concept with Supervillain I can't speak right now, wow, wanting to get on the nice list, took out all the other fluff and stuff, and just made it, turned it from a Stickman Christmas Carol into Supervillains Christmas. And honestly, I'm pretty happy that I did that, because I feel like if we went with a very, Stickman Christmas Carol, it would have been pretty bloated. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on to January, which was, now there wasn't a Stickman episode in January of 2024, but I did make up for it with the release of Mirror Gallery, which was an original Stickman song. It kind of been on a roll with the songs, as you could tell. But no new actual Season 2 episode until February, like, dang. Season 3 episode until, like, February, but anyway. But Mirror Gallery basically follows the 1 hour before Yellow's return, and Yellow kind of going off the rails. There's not too much to say on it, except that, I wanted, like, another Yellow villain song, I guess, since I really liked Yellow's time. But, I mean, there's not too much to say on Mirror Gallery. I kind of wish I didn't do Mirror Gallery a little bit, because that would have cleared up more time for real episodes and wouldn't have made Season 3 take so dang long. But, nevertheless, I did Mirror Gallery. And then the next month, in February, I finally released Episode 2 of Season 3, Tales from the Resistance 2. Now, Dad really liked the first Tales from the Resistance, so I decided to do a sequel to it, which, was pretty impressive. I was staying with my dad when I ended up finishing it, and we had like a few hours, in the hours leading up to it, me and Dad were like talking about what the next Stickman episode was gonna be. I was like, you're really gonna like this one, since he really liked Tales from the Resistance, and he was guessing and stuff. I don't remember what most of his guesses were. We were staying in Panama City for a small little beach vacation at the time, so that was nice. But then I showed him, but then the episode finally came out, Tales from the Resistance 2, and he was like, oh, no way, dude, no way! Kind of like his reaction when I aired the birthday. Despite my protests and my thinking, he still thinks that Tales from the Resistance 1 is better, but I strongly disagree with him. Tales from the Resistance 2 is awesome. Anyway, for March, there was no actual Stickman episode. However, I did do something else. I did start my little Q&A series called Supervillain. Now you see, I had announced Supervillain almost a full year earlier, back in July of 2023. But I didn't actually get around to making the videos until March of 2024 because I was busy with other stuff. Which was a real shame too, since we actually got some questions in the comments on the BitChute version. So that was pretty nice. So in case you were wondering where those comments were from and if I made them up in the Supervillain video, no, I didn't. Those were just some of the comments left by the BitChute audience, which was pretty cool. In April, I did All Washed Up. Now, All Washed Up was honestly a pretty big episode for me. Now, let me explain. For one, this was my only video in April 2024. Dang, bro. That's wow. But this was also a big episode because it was the return of the one, the only, Count Showtime. Now, if you watched my last video, then you know that I have mixed feelings about his first appearance being showbiz. I don't think the episode is very good, and I stand on that hill. But I still really liked Count Showtime and felt that showbiz didn't do him justice at all. So this was kind of my comeback episode, make Count Showtime just be as good as possible. And I think, it's also a full-on musical, which is a first and only time for Stickmen series, since there's been musical numbers and just full-on songs, but I mean, never like a full Broadway musical, which is how I envisioned All Washed Up. Yeah. I think I succeeded in flying colors when it came to making Count Showtime a better character. And they also foreshadowed Cyan going back home, so that was pretty nice. Morphbot 2000. Now this is basically a nothing burger when it comes to production. Like, there is almost nothing I can say about this episode. I was on summer break. It wasn't very well received, mainly because it was just one big fight episode, yada yada yada. The morphing mechanic was pretty cool. That was nice. I liked Black fighting, yeah. You get the idea. Anyway, moving right along to Cyber Prison Break. Now this was a huge episode. Like, wow. It was the grand return of Casino Gary. Black's mom was revealed to be a cheater. A bunch of new characters were introduced. There was a huge new song at the end. It was really just kind of a full-on banger of an episode. It was honestly one of the highest quality episodes to date. Released on June 8th, 2024. Robots Rise Again was released on June 21st, not too much later, and basically is the final battle between Black and Robo-King, and also killed off the Blink ship, Black and Pink. That's just a little pet name that I came up with for it. But anyway, Robots Rise Again has, like, a pretty big topic about, letting someone go and stuff like that. And it was a pretty fun episode to make. I did most of it in a day, too, which is pretty cool and impressive. Anyway, on to, these past few episodes have all been over summer 2024, so I had a little bit more time on my hands, but I mean, as you probably noticed with our next episode being the final of summer 2024, it was nowhere near as good as summer 2023 when it came to just the quantity of animation. During June, I also did Supervillain Episode 2, which had even more questions from the comments of the first episode on BitChute. That one is the best Supervillain episode in my opinion. After that, what happened next? Robots Rise Again was also, when we went to upload it to BitChute, that's when disaster struck, and BitChute kind of died. You see, BitChute changed its format. It changed its format completely to be more like YouTube, and honestly tanked a lot of our a lot of our Stickmen views, which, I mean, really stunk because BitChute was the one place where Stickmen was actually getting seen, since YouTube was treating the series like crap now, with barely any views. And now, the one place where we actually had an audience was kind of stripped away from us. So yeah, that kind of sucked. But, anyway. The next episode was Indiana Black and the Temple of Gloom. Now, this was the introduction of the Elemental arc. Now, let me go on a small little tangent about the Elementals. This is one of the riskier moves of Stickmen, making the finale be about something that was just introduced this late in the series, and not something like Robo King or the aliens. But, I think it worked nonetheless. But, anyway, Indiana Black and the Temple of Gloom was a pretty fun, was an episode that was definitely on the lighter side. It started at the end, which was, it was one of those, had the cliche movie trope of starting at the end and then going back in time, which was kind of interesting, and it's the only Stickman episode to do that. Originally the episode was going to be called Temple of Gloom, being an Indiana Jones parody, before making it even more of an Indiana Jones parody, changing it to Black in the Temple of Gloom, before finally changing it to Indiana Black and the Temple of Gloom. One of the biggest mouthfuls in all of Stickmen. Wow. Anyway, yep, it was definitely on the lighter side, probably the weakest of the Elemental episodes in my opinion. But nevertheless, that was our last Stickman episode for a good little bit. We did do Supervillain episode 3, which was the final episode in Supervillain series. We were going to make a fourth one with Monica being the MC, but that got canned because we never ended up actually posting Supervillain episode 3 to BitChute, and I think we all know what happened in the final test, which would make Supervillain episode 4 impossible. So, yeah. Anyway, there was no Stickman episode in August. Then in September, I did Playing with Fire, which brought back the Dementoids, and kind of just, brought forth the topic of Supervillain's redemption arc again, which is one of the biggest redemption arcs in all of Stickman. Then, not too much to say on Playing with Fire, though. It was originally supposed to come out in August, but it got pushed back a little. But then comes Cyan Story, which might be the best backstory episode I've ever done. And probably for good reason. I was having I was going through a little bit during September 2024, just some kind of mental struggles. I don't really want to get into it, but, I think those struggles actually kind of pushed Cyan Story to be a masterpiece, since I was writing pretty soulfully then. I'd already had the concept mapped out a few years ago, but, about a year ago, but, yeah, I think I really outdid myself with Cyan Story, and it was a really spectacular episode. Anyway, on to Abducted Part 3, or the Abducted Part 1, which finally brought Black and Supervillain face to face with the aliens, this omnipresent threat that had been part of Stickman since, the very beginning. Well, since Stickman Party, at least. So that was pretty cool. Abducted Part 2 was the next episode. It was originally supposed to come out in October, but it got pushed to early November. Abducted Part 1 came out in October, too. And Abducted Part 2 was also supposed to come out in October, but it got pushed back. Then came the first, then it was time for Stickman's second year anniversary, so what we did was StickCon 2024, which was basically the new format that we're doing whenever it comes to the anniversaries. We did that for 2025 as well. It's basically Nintendo Direct, but for Stickman. It had trailers for Stickman Reanimated, which we revived, which was pretty cool. Stickman the Musical, which we're still working on. A new trailer for Stickman Race that became obsolete. A Stickman Minecraft map trailer. And most importantly, a trailer for the upcoming Stickman Christmas special, Naughty or Heist. Now, Naughty or Heist was our biggest Christmas special yet, and boy does it show. It's probably my favorite. Anyway, I had come up with the idea back in 2023, actually. Even before Supervillain's Christmas released. I knew that's what I wanted to do for 2024, to be like this big special Christmas special. Big special Christmas special. And I had started concepting it in January of 2024. Some of the differences were originally it wasn't supposed to be called Naughty or Heist. In fact, it was supposed to be called Holiday Heist, which was interesting. I did change it to Naughty or Heist to make it sound less generic. The plot was still the same, though. Originally, the characters were all going to have heist outfits. They're all going to be decked out in heist outfits. But I found that to be kind of a pain, so I didn't end up going with that. But the biggest change of all comes in Bernard, since we all know that Bernard was the inside elf, the one working at the North Pole, and also the twist villain. But he was still going to be the twist villain, but he wasn't going to be an elf, a man on the inside. He was actually going to be a jester-type character. Yeah, he was going to be a jester. But I changed it, and he was still going to be the twist villain, though, and still take Santa's hat. But I changed it to an elf because I thought it fit better being, Christmassy and stuff. And I think I was right. Bernard is awesome. Anyway, with that, at the end of Naughty or Heist, they all stayed in the North Pole to heal until the new year, which is kind of a way of me segueing into 2025, which basically meant that Stickmen was taking a bow out of 2024 and heading headfirst into 2025, which, at the time, I knew that 2025 was, like, the final countdown. Like, 2025 was going to be the biggest year for Stickmen yet. Like, wow. Since it's the finale of Stickmen, the final Hail Mary. So, in January, we came out swinging with Abducted Part 3, which is the best of the Abducted trilogy, and really ties everything together. I honestly had a blast working on it. It was really fun. Dang, it's hard to believe it's almost been a year since that released. Woo! It was a lot of fun, especially, like, the final fight scene. That was awesome. In February came 20,000 stick figures Under the Sea, which we were finally leaping back into the Elemental arc for the final arc of the series, which was the first Elemental episode since September. I had a lot of fun with this one. I think 20,000 stick figures Under the Sea is one of the most visually impressive Stickman episodes. Like, the ocean is so vibrant and colorful and honestly really beautiful, which is something I really wanted to incorporate into it, so I'm glad that happened. It was also the time of promoting it was also when I reached out to you when I went missing. It released on President's Day. I also had a lot of fun designing the crew of robots, too. I really wanted to lean into wacky, kind of rubber hosey designs, but also robot. I kind of had a whole fun idea with cool cartoony pirates, but also robots. So that was a nice little theme. My favorite is probably either Big Gun with his gun nose, or Squawks, which is just this little demon bird who just screws everything up. Anyway, the demon parrot. Anyway, moving on. On Thin Ice released in March when I was on my spring break on March 18th. Not too much to say on that one. Then came Head in the Clouds, the second to last Stickman episode. And honestly, I kind of felt something when making this one. You see, the production of Head in the Clouds was, let's just say, interesting. It had a whole new musical number. It felt super grandeur and epic. Yeah. It was a big episode. And yeah, it makes sense being the 49th of 50th episode and the final gem hunting episode. Well, besides the final test. Anywho, originally I'd planned on it being released on Easter, April 20th. But the day before Easter, I was falling behind. I was still working on this song, and I realized that Easter was gonna suck, and I called my dad in absolute dismay, like, oh, really, at this time, I was just so done with Stickman at this point. Like, I'd been working on this kind of nonstop for almost 3 years at this point. without slowing down or taking breaks. I mean, look at season 1, how fast season 1 and season 2 came out. And season 3, because of that fact, season 3 was kind of taking a toll on me. The fastness of season 1 and 2 was kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, since I quickly became burnt out on Stickman. Like, I was already kind of burnt out on Stickman by the end of 2023, only to discover, oops, I gotta make 2 more years of this crap. Anyway. So I decided to push the release date back to the coming Friday, which gave me a bit more time. I spent the week working on it slowly but surely, and on Friday, though it took me quite a few hours and a headache, that it didn't have anything to do with the episode. It was just I had a really bad headache that day. I eventually managed to get it out at like 8 o'clock, and boom. And then here we are. Then came the finale, the end of Stickmen. Yeah, just the final episode. Well, not the specials, obviously, but like the last episode in the entire series. Was going to be capped out at a 50-episode run. Stickmen, the final test. Now, this episode was just honestly a tribute to Stickmen in general. I mean, I had a lot of fun working on it, actually. I had a lot more fun than I was expecting. And I really think I knocked it out of the park, ending Stickmen. Even with the whole risk of it being an elemental-focused episode, I still managed to make it feel like a great finale. Like, it started out epic with all the different gem combinations, then the entire crew came. Then, of course, to make it feel like a proper finale, everyone from the entire series came in and pitched in. Then, supervillain died, which is sad. Then Black combined all the gems together, turning himself into dun-dun-dun, Rainbow. Bam, boom, bam. Boom, 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 boom. Nah, nah, nah. Anyway, I feel like Rainbow is honestly just the perfect finale character for Stickmen, because it just makes so much sense in a series where pretty much every single character is color-coded. Having the ultimate character be every color, it's just so perfect. Like, wow. And so the elementals all turn into the moon and are coming to crash down the planet. If you couldn't tell, the final test was heavily inspired by the finale of Amphibia. I love Amphibia so much. Even down to the moon having 10 eyes. But that honestly wasn't intentional. I said there's 5 of them, each of them have 2 eyes, so they all make 10 eyes. Then I went back and watched the finale of Amphibia and was like, oh crap, it's too similar now. I also, during the fight scene, this dope as heck song plays in the background called Lightspeed, which is kind of an entourage of every single Stickman song. It has like parts from every single Stickman song. Fun little fact, I wrote the lyrics down and lost them too, but I actually managed to sing the entire song from memory somehow. Like, I looked at the lyrics and it was basically word for word, which, I mean, hey, props to me, right? Anyway, and then the finale of it, the chat with Nicholas Scott, obviously, but then the Where Are They Now section, is one of the best segments in all of Stickman history, being just kind of how everyone moved on with their lives after all the adventures were done. Yeah, and I feel like each of the characters got kind of a fitting ending. However, except for, there were 2 characters that were missing, White and Count Showtime. Now, I guess I could kind of excuse White. And they both had endings, I just forgot to include him. White was he was going to become, like, the greatest adventurer of all time. Which, I mean, I can live without, though it is kind of sad that White got snubbed, since he is kind of an overlooked character anyways. But Count Showtime, I had, like, an actual plan for him. He was going to go to Broadway. That was going to be his ending, so I was kind of upset about that, but, oh well. And with that, we've reached the end of Stickmen. The end of Stickmen. Now, people ask me, is Stickmen over? Yes, look, the main series is. However, I'm not stopping making Stickmen. I like the series too much to stop. Instead, I'm switching formats, so it's not even technically ending. I'm going from episode format to 2 special a year format. I'm switching over to specials, meaning that there's going to be a summer special and a Christmas special pretty much each year. One year I might do more than one special, some years I might do just one, really depends on the year in general. But rather than being shorter episodes, since season 3 of Stickmen was kind of leaning towards long form anyways. One thing I did forget to mention, during the eyesore competition for Does Not Compute, I actually slowed down the frames per second from 2 frames per second to 1 frame a second, which changing it from the original, so the judges could actually keep up, so yeah. But anyway, this year we got Return of the Double and a secret Christmas special. I'm not telling you yet. But as for the actual series of Stickmen, yeah, it's over. And with that, we're unfortunately at the end of our tour of the history of Stickmen. It's been super fun looking back at the history of Stickmen and reflecting. And yeah, that's the end. Don't really have anything else to say. Bye, guys.